Hey, Happy New Year.
That was slick. You just floated onto the screen.
Yeah. I like that. That was nice. A floating head.
Green screen in the background. So
welcome to Tone Talk with Mark Uzansky and Dave Friedman. I'm choking. It's episode 130, and we've got an awesome guest from Russian Circles, Mike Sullivan. What's up, Mike?
Hi guys. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for joining. And our first show of 2023.
There you go. Goes down in history.
Nice. It's in the books.
Exactly.
Yeah, cool. Let's call it.
All right, it's done. We're done. I hope everybody's doing good in the chat. It's good to see everybody back. Yeah, easy for me to say. I know, right? I get all choked up when I do this show, you know.
I'm sure you guys are crazy nervous. It's okay.
It just brings on.
Drink, take it easy. It's okay. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I'm actually.
You can fix it. You can fix it with something.
Yeah, there you go.
Say I have no alcohol tonight.
I was hemming and hawing whether I was going to do it, and the last second I ran to the corner store.
Right.
And what are we drinking now? We're drinking Casa Amigos.
Oh, nice.
Reposado.
Reposado. What does that taste like? I've never had that. Is it sweet?
Well, my favorite tequila of all time is Clase Azul, which is that big white and blue fluted, beautiful bottle.
Right.
Oh, and that tastes like kind of sweet caramel to me. This is kind of the cheap version of the sweet caramel. It's not as sweet as, I don't know if I'd call it sweet, but it's not as seemingly sweet. And it's quite good for the budget. About half the price.
And the bottle's not as nice, unfortunately.
No, but they sold it for a lot more money than anyone ever.
Really?
I think they sold it for $1 billion.
Oh my God.
The three partners was George Clooney and Randy Gerber, and the other guy escapes me.
Yeah, actually, that's what Jonathan Schaap says. He says Casa Amigos worked really well for the three wise men that started it.
Worked really well.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah. I can't imagine, even think about this, even after your taxes and after whatever lawyers and whoever else you have to pay, you're still left with a shit ton of money.
Yeah. So, Mike, time to start an alcohol company.
Yeah, let's get into it. Yeah, that's kind of why.
Well, surely the music industry isn't profitable anymore.
Yeah.
You make millions of dollars on tour, right?
Right, of course. Yeah. I'm actually kind of stowed away in my little winter cottage just to get away from things, just to focus for a while. But I have a monthly abodes, across North America. So if anything, I'm just trying to get rid of money at this point.
Yeah, burning it.
That's my main stress. So where to invest at this point? The liquor company is on the list. So.
It's almost seems like every rock star has it. I know Sammy made a ton of money,
and then he started another one.
Did he?
Well, he didn't make $1 billion or trillion or whatever it was. Did I say $1 billion? I don't know what it was.
But he made a shitload of money off of the.
He sold it twice. He sold it first time sold it for like $80 million, and then kept a 25% share in it, and then sold it again for another $80 million.
Yeah,
amazing.
And then started a couple other liquor brands. Santos with Guy Fieri.
Oh, really?
Santos, what is it? Tequila or something, which is a mezcal / tequila hybrid.
Seems Red Rocker friendly.
I had it. It's okay. It's not great.
All right. So, Mike, you guys, Dave turned me on to your band because I had not heard of you guys before. So I went back through your albums. I didn't realize you guys have albums way back to 2006.
Yeah.
When did the band start?
2004. the drummer Dave and I started jamming. He was living in St. Louis at the time, and I was up in Chicago. We were old buds. We played in a punk band in high school way back in the day, and both of our respective bands had broken up right before Russian Circles began. And we thought, hey, let's jam. So I drove down there just to mess around and jam essentially and see what happened. And the chemistry was there, and we thought, all right, something's here. So he moved up to Chicago within what feels like weeks. I don't know, but there was something there that we couldn't ignore. And he moved up to Chicago, moved in with me and another friend, and we just jammed every day for months and months. We'd go to the practice space and just horse around until we were happy with arrangements. But it was fun, just barely trying things out and seeing what was comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Did you always intend it to be instrumental, or was at first you were like you weren't sure what was going on?
Not necessarily. My prior band of Russian Circles was also instrumental, so I was comfortable in that world of living a vocal-free life, and I still needed to learn a lot about composition and writing at that point, but we weren't looking for a singer, but we were open-minded for sure. Like even the first few months or so, a friend of ours was playing keyboards and adding some noise elements, or maybe one practice. It didn't work out ultimately, but we were open-minded. If an amazing vocalist seemed right, we would have tried them out for sure. It wasn't like we are definitely this and not that. We were open. We were a malleable band at that point, and just kind of having fun and seeing what. There was no expectations, no name, recognition really. So we were just free to have fun. But once we booked a first show and kind of played a show as a 3-piece, we thought, all right, this is working. And there's a lot of music I love that we love that's instrumental of various genres. So it wasn't weird or groundbreaking or weird or a new concept to be instrumental. That was something we were very familiar with at the time.
Yeah, that's like what bands were you influenced by, would you say?
It was a lot of late 90s or mid 90s to late 90s kind of heavy, not quite metal, but indie rock kind of bands like Don Caballero and the Fucking Champs, who were more of a metal based band that was based on a lot of guitar harmonies, and bands like Tristeza, the Album Leaf, Mogwai was a big one, Godspeed Black Emperor, Oxes, a lot of that underground scene, the whole DIY thing. We came from the punk rock world, and so all those bands were of that ilk. So it wasn't so much metal based as it was more of independent spirit. I grew up loving metal, and then kind of found my way into the punk stuff, and then through bands like Fucking Champs and Mastodon, started working my way back towards the heavier side of things, and then that was from Russian Circles right away. It started to be heavy. The previous band was more mathy that I was in, and it wasn't as grounded, but Russian Circles had way more of a metal element out of the gate, so that kind of, the first song set the path for us. Like, oh, we're heavy. Okay, cool. Let's lean into that. So each record, we kind of just lean into that even more. And that's the most fun to play live. But we didn't know exactly if it'd be heavy or not until the first few practices. Like, damn, this has got some weight to it. Okay, cool. We didn't try to do that.
It's just the way it sounded naturally.
And I have to say, we were friends with the band Pelican and shared a practice space with them. And they were a huge influence on us musically and just how to operate as a band in Chicago. And I don't know if you know them or not, but they're great band, great people. Yeah, Pelican's the name. And they would just throw us on shows. Oh, you need a booking agent? Here you go. Come with us here. And they were really kind to us from the get-go. But they're an incredibly heavy band, very doomy band, way before that was super popular, short of bands like Sleep and whatnot. But they were an influence for sure on us. I would definitely say so.
Well, I know from experience, you're probably really lucky not to have a singer in the band.
That's the joke I was going to use.
Oh man, I stole it, huh?
We're not into that. No, we're doing just fine. We're all humble dudes who don't want the limelight. So I think we wouldn't jive well with we don't need Dave Lee Roth in our band. I love him
Right.
who he is, but I don't think that fit the bill.
Right. Exactly. Hey, by the way, I want to mention our sponsors, sweetwater.com. Make sure you guys use our link if you're going to purchase anything, please. It's an affiliate link, and we get a little kickback from Sweetwater. Doesn't cost you anything extra, but just use the link below in the description of the video. Check out our store below. We have shirts and stuff for sale, and then also fixpedalboards.com. Check them out. Tim over at fixpedalboards.com has lots of stuff that'll help with your pedal boards and other products. Okay.
Almost sounds like you're finally getting it.
Really?
Finally delivering the message.
It only took 6 years.
I tagged on and give a shout out to my Sweetwater rep, Tom Maxwell. Thanks for all the emails, Tom. I'm doing great. Thanks for following up.
Did he call you recently?
He's on it, man. Tom's on it. I may have given him like hey, I'm good here. We can keep this a digital only relationship. But
yeah, exactly. Don't call me.
Send me some candy.
I have a guy, Robert Williams, there that takes care of me. But
shout out.
It's more of a kind of I'll buy things from them for rigs that I'm doing for people or things like that sometimes, and they give me a little break on stuff because I'm also a vendor, there with products. But that's cool. Shout out to Robert. We love Robert.
And Randy Poteet. That's your guy. Yeah, that's my guy. Yeah, and then also the people who we work with for the affiliate, Tyler and Josh. You guys rock. So they're a great organization. They really are. I just saw.
Sure makes life easier, and it also makes life really nice because you don't have to necessarily go somewhere to buy the stuff like Guitar Center or
It's it's a catch-22. I find myself, maybe because I'm an old geezer at this point, but I find myself like wanting to still go to a store, get out, go somewhere and see what they have. But on the other hand,
it was a cool store, but
oh yeah, I mean, I go to the same stores.
Not very many good stores in LA.
No,
surprisingly.
Here in Florida, it's the same way. I mean, it's the same inventory, the same shit. Unfortunately, so.
But sometimes it's like a record store where you want to go to the used section. The most exciting part of a guitar store is usually, the used stuff. So you go to some of those, and the only thing that's kind of going to be interesting is, do they have any weird gems or weird one-offs here? But cool vintage stores, you don't know what's going to be in there. So, like Chicago has a handful of great stores. Obviously, CME, but Rock and Roll Vintage, and a handful of other guitar stores that you don't know what's going to be in there. And there's going to be something affordable that isn't a year's wage, to get into it. But those are always exciting, those stores where it's worth checking out no matter what. Always dip in. If you're going by, dip in because you might find some weird shit, and that's a holdover from pre-internet, where you didn't always buy online. You'd just dip in the stores and you never knew what they had. But Chicago, I got to say, is one of my favorite cities for doing that, always dropping in. And it's dangerous. You walk out of there with less money than you had prior.
CME and
yeah. In New York, it was 48th Street. Excuse me. What was the place? I forget the name of the 28th Street Music or something like that. There was a store that had tons of stuff, like old pedals but it's been a while since I've been there. But like you said, I mean, when I went in, I bought a JCM 800 there and had it shipped back home to me. This is a few years ago. Maybe.
There used to be a great place in LA years ago. Might have been called Guitar or something at the time or something. And it was great. It was almost all used, and it was huge. And you'd walk in, and it'd just be like Marshalls lined up, old guitars, bins of $20 pedals, and more expensive pedals, and just and you were like, ooh, what am I gonna find? You know, you're like looking, you know, and that, I mean, that's fun, but you just don't get it anymore, you know, rarely, you know. I guess Chicago, yes, some other places, yes, but
New York, Nashville.
yeah.
Nashville is so intimidating. Like literally, like all
Yeah.
the shops, depending where we're playing, and everyone there is like a gunslinging guitar player who's just like, I'm embarrassed to even hold a guitar at a Nashville guitar shop. It's like a bum will walk off the street and just bust out, you know,
The chicken picking.
Yeah, just ripping your head off. You're just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, I want this guitar, but I don't have the balls to play it in front of these guys. So,
The
yeah,
store-
Nashville's got some good stores.
yeah.
The store I was referring to is 30th Street Guitars in New York City. That
Okay.
place, yeah, it's just fantastic. I mean, they've got a pedal, you know, used pedal section.
Is it still there?
Yeah, I just
Oh,
looked it
really?
up. Yeah, they're still there. They got like 4.8 stars out of 5 stars. Great store. So I haven't. It's been a while since I've been there, but yeah, one of those places, not the run of the mill. You know,
I
chain.
mean, I had all those kind of stores growing up. I mean, in Detroit, I mean, that was full of cool stores that had old stuff, and that was awesome. You know, everything was old. You know, it was just like, but old then. You know, old now is different. Old now might be a Line 6 Spider amp.
Yeah, 97.
You know,
Right.
Yeah.
Old when I was a kid. You know, when I was 15 years old, let's say, you know, that's from the 70s.
Right.
You know, so, you know, I might have been in the mid 80s, but 10 years old, you know, mid 70s, you know. So what you saw in the stores was used gear from mid 70s, you know, 10 years old, not, you know, that old. But now that's a Spider.
Right.
Or
A Blues Junior.
Or, you know, just stuff that's not great. And now all the other stuff is vintage and very expensive, especially now.
Oh, it's crazy.
And
Yeah. I'm just old enough to have been around playing guitar when you could go into a store, and vintage wasn't such a thing yet. So in the 90s, early 90s, mid 90s, I was able to pick up my first Gibson was a 71 SG standard.
Oh, that's cool.
I got that for $375 out the door.
Good deal.
And, you know, later traded that towards Les Paul Custom, you know, 10 years, 15 years later. But it was right on the cusp. Maybe it's the internet introduction that changed prices and education on guitars, but it was so much fun. Like when I was younger, I'd go on hockey trips, and my parents would take me to pawn shops. You know, it was a little fun event trying to find old Dobros and Nationals, and you never knew what you were going to find, and we didn't track those down. But the hunt was always on. And there's a store in Chicago called Midwest Buy and Sell, which is a pawn shop essentially that's now become more music instrument based, but it's a pawn shop, and you go in there and it's like, oh, this is a bit gnarly, it's a bit rough around the edges, and it's a bit of the holdover from that era of when you could find gems and like, oh, there they know what they have now. But back in the day, you could find these guitars where like, oh, they don't know what they have here. Like, this is a sleeper great pedal or cab, what have you, but they don't know about it, you know. But yeah, that's hard to find. It feels a bit like Antique Roadshow, like back then. Now, like Craigslist is fun. I love Craigslist. That's a little
fun. You get bargains. You can get bargains sometimes there because someone's trying to off something quick or just don't know what they have. In fact, a friend of ours, Michael Torin, he sent me a thing where there was a B100 Friedman B100 half stack that some guy was selling somewhere, and somehow
I think it was on eBay, and
it wound up going for like
$400,
$500, the whole thing. And I'm like, obviously no one was paying any attention, and they didn't have any, like, I mean, that was just stupid,
right?
But, you know, someone got a good deal.
Do you think it was real though?
Like, I don't know. Maybe it wasn't real. Who knows?
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking that too, but I didn't look into it. You know, whatever.
Yeah.
There was a nice area on eBay for a while. You could find poorly listed instruments, so they didn't know what they wouldn't describe it properly or misspell it. And I stumbled across some good deals just because people didn't know what they had. And
Sure.
that's the same. That's a modern day like pawn shop essentially. But like, oh, you don't know what you have here, but this is
Occasionally, yeah, you can get lucky, but
it's
today,
more rare now. Yeah.
yeah, it seems like these days people overprice the most common shit.
Yeah.
And I'll go on Craigslist and they're selling stuff that's more expensive than what it is in the store. You can buy new in some cases. You're just like,
frankly, I'm just not that interested anymore. I mean, I have several key pieces of vintage gear that I love that I won't get rid of. And I'm like, yeah, I know what that sounds like. Okay. Yeah. Do I need it? No, I have that other one.
But you still search though, don't you?
I still look sometimes just in case.
There's
Because sometimes I just get the urge to buy something. I just want to buy something and I don't need it. I don't need it at all in
It's
any
just
way,
that-
shape, or form of anything.
I
I don't
know.
need guitars. I don't need pedals. I have enough. But sometimes it's like I get a wild hair up my ass to like, I kind of really would like that old pedal that I always kind of wanted and haven't had for years. Okay, I'm going to buy it. Click.
right.
Pedals
are dangerous because
they're easy to buy, right? They're not too expensive,
I did that recently with this. It's got a hair on it.
Is that a reissue fuzz face?
Yeah, it's a Jimi Hendrix fuzz face.
Oh yeah. Now get Analog Man to mod it.
I could, right? It actually sounds really good as it is. But I just, it was like an impulse buy. I'm like, I've never owned one of these. I'm like, boom, I'm gonna buy it. Boom. Did I need it? No.
Yeah, I know.
It's just
I have literally bins and bins and bins of stuff in my shop here that is just sitting there. And I think about it, and I'm like, that stuff's been sitting there for years.
I haven't done anything with
Why
it.
do I even have it?
Right.
Yeah. Accumulating value, the more you
some of them, yeah. Some of them, absolutely. Some of them, for sure.
So, Mike, what other guitars do you have that are like kind of your favorites? That not necessarily vintage, but that you use a lot, or that's like your go-tos.
What was funny, like just this week, we did a reverb sale, like an official Russian circle.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
I don't like to have a whole lot of gear. It's just I don't need so much. I do like pedals, so I will like have shelves of pedals just to play with and like concoct a different chain and just for different ideas. But I don't like holding on to too many guitars at one point. Nothing's sacred to me unless it really, really has meaning to me. And some of the most meaningful guitars are guitars I have a Fender Strat. It's actually right here. This is just did all my own modding to it and learn the game by messing around and making mistakes and figuring out how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But this means more to me than a guitar I just bought, played, enjoyed, used it as a tool, and then found something else. Whereas this, I kind of cut my teeth learning about it, and it sounds like a Strat. I don't want it to be a Les Paul. I don't want it to sound like another guitar. I want it to occupy its own space as it's designed. So those are the guitars that I have more of a fondness to for. And then as far as I do have a few like collection pieces that I'll, like we were talking earlier, I'll find like an old ES 330 that I found for like a steal, like an old 60s 330. I was like, I gotta grab that. That's a good deal. A 59 ES 125 I got for hundreds of bucks. It's like, I'll buy that, and just hold that forever.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, sure.
A few Les Pauls that just mean a lot to me. Like I love Les Pauls. Always will value those, and certain Les Pauls mean a lot to me, and I've been on important tours and records of my life. So those I'll hold on to, but most of the gear is pretty liquid. Like I'm not married to anything, so I'm happy with Dunable. Sasha Dunable makes these guitars out here in LA, and they're great for what I do or for my application of playing, like ergonomically and how they sound. It's replaced any Les Paul in my life as far as playing live and in studio, and from the pickups all the way to the tone woods and the feel of it. It's like I don't play other heavy guitars besides Dunable at this point, just because they check all the boxes for me. It's like, oh, so there are cool pieces, and I'll always be a fan of like traditional guitars, and like we talk about what gear do you still look for, and what will you always be interested in. My brother and I were chatting last night, and he asked me, what's like, if you have all this money, what would you buy tomorrow if you were given X amount of money? And my white whale is like a black Gibson Barney Kessel, like that old, double pedal. Like I've always loved those. They're always an arm and a leg, but there's certain guitars I always kind of, are in the back of my brain bouncing around, but there's not too many. I have a Telecaster I like that was old. It's made out of reclaimed redwood out here in California, which I think is cool. And I mess with that. And I swap pickups. I put holes in it where I shouldn't, and I like mess it up, and so it's unsellable essentially, but it's got vibe to it, and I like big fat necks on guitars. So Fenders are fun. You can mess with them, whereas the set necks and the glued in necks or neck through, those are different. I don't mess around with those too much, besides pickup mods and the odd changes here and there. But same with amps. I'm kind of like, until I found the Highwatt rig recently, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So
you were using twins before, right?
Yeah, and then those are great.
Into 4x12s, was that correct? Or
no, because I had just twins, and then I was experimenting with different enclosures. Like some would be like a baseband, powering a baseband 212. Sounded sonically perfect. Like our sound guy Patrick was like, "That's it." Like I love that baseband so much. Those 60s Fender amps are incredible, but I needed a little more wattage. I couldn't hear myself that much on stage. It was certain sets we played, depending on what we're playing. I need a ton of headroom and a lot of volume, clean volume. And so that's why I like Fender. When we first started, I used Sun Model Ts, but they were the Fender reissues. So those are, people kind of snooze on those amps, I feel like. They're Fender amps, and they have the Sun badge, but they're essentially Fender amps. And they have so much headroom. The distorted channel is a monster, more of a kind of a fuzzy, gnarly, distorted, blown out sound. But the headroom on those amps is incredible. And that's what I look for in an amp, is there's certain notes I can play, a certain tuning I can check. Will the speakers hold? Will the tone hold its composure and structure? Like and certain amps just, they start farting out. And a lot of our songs have loops that are stacked, and sometimes I'll have a loop, a clean passage, and have a distorted riff over that. And if the signal chain and the amps and the cumulative chain can't handle the stacked loops with articulation, it gets pretty mushy, pretty muddy quickly. So that's why I look for amps with just obnoxious amounts of headroom, but still have a warmth to them, where they're not sterile and soulless, So it's tough. It's hard to find that fine line of some warmth and vibe, but enough leeway where you can kind of add some layers there and still sound articulate.
I saw on Reverb, one of your amps was for sale. I don't think it was part of your Reverb sale, but it was just someone selling it. It was a Fender Pro Sonic.
Oh yeah.
And I used to own one of those as well. They are cool. They actually had a really interesting overdrive channel.
They do. They're a great home amplifier, I feel like. Or if you can get away playing that at clubs, those are a nice little secret weapon. That Fender can do some distorted amps here and there that sound pretty good, like pretty nice saturated tone. Not the Pro Sonic and the Model T reissue are the two amps that I can speak to about that. But that Pro Sonic's a fun little burner of an amp. That's cool.
Yeah. I don't know why I got rid of it, but I don't know. But
so you've moved to Highwatt.
Yeah, Highwatt.
So I saw that. So that's how this came about. This whole thing came about.
Oh,
I saw the picture of the Highwatt rig and the pedal board with one of my pedals on it, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I gotta reach out.
Wait, so I'm sorry. Say that again, Dave.
I saw a picture of the Highwatt rig. somewhere online or something. And I'm like, fuck, that's so fucking cool. And then I saw a picture of your pedal board or current pedal board, and you had a picture. You were using my BEOD Deluxe, right?
Right. Sure.
Yeah. And I'm like, shit, I got to message him.
That was I got to say, Dave, that was so nice of you. Dave personally reached out and said, "Hey, it's Dave here, introducing himself. I just want to say thanks for using the pedals, and I'm a fan of the music." And that was incredibly kind of you to do that. Most proprietors of various, companies wouldn't do that. I don't think that was a nice touch of you.
Well, it was cool. I mean, I like the band. I mean, I saw you guys play. I don't know how many years ago now. On you played at the Palladium with Mastodon, and I think it was Mastodon, Eagles of Death Metal, and you guys. It I mean, that's the first time I saw you, and it was amazing. It was I found it interesting because it was heavy but moody and completely entertaining. Like you never you never thought about the fact there's no vocalist or anything, or that it was just great.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. In fact, probably the best band of the night.
Oh, good. I know you had Bill on the podcast, Bill Kelleher from Mastodon.
Yeah, Bill has his signature amp with us and stuff. Sure. Yeah, I know Bill. Yeah.
And I have to say, at their sound checks, I'm a big fan of Mastodon, so I'd kind of linger around if I was around and kind of check them out and hang around. And his rig live, when you're in front of it, it sounds great in front of house, but even when you're just on stage checking when he's playing, I can safely say the best heavy guitar tone I've heard is Bill's tone live. And there's other people who also do not similar, but sound great also. So I'm not taking away from anybody else. But of who I've seen, Bill's the best sounding guitar I've heard. And just off the stage, it's like, damn, that's great. He's got it dialed in.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know how many years ago. That must have been 6 years ago or something, maybe.
Yeah, that sounds about 5-6 years ago.
5-6 years ago, right?
Yeah. You guys will have to come out to a new show.
I'd love to.
So it's grown. It's been fun. We had introduced a lighting guy, and the rig has grown. I'm now playing in stereo, which is part of the point of having so many Highwatts. It's not for volume, but it's more so to get a ping pong effect with the delays and just to fill out the sound more. And as a 3-piece with one guitar player, that gives me the freedom to really utilize the stereo field.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of having a few hard panned amps and summing the signal through another amp. So that's straight down the middle. The sound guy can bring that up for the heavier riffage, or bring it back to let the sound breathe, to let other people step forward in the mix. So the Highwatts, the Highwatts are great because they are very forgiving as far as muddiness and the way.
There's nothing muddy about a Highwatt.
Yeah, that's why the Fenders are great. I loved them, but you kind of mentioned the 412. I missed a loud 100-watt amp where I can just riff and chug, and it just sounds super full. And the Twins were very loud and focused, literally focused, at my back. I just wanted the low end push and the 412 to couple with the stage and really produce this low end resonance that I wasn't getting with the Twins. So,
well, the stacked up Highwatt rig looks cool as shit. So
yeah.
Kudos just for that alone.
Right. The era. Well, it's funny because we did a number of shows, which were our biggest shows ever. We opened for System of a Down a few years ago. It was right as the pandemic was wrapping up. And I had, a year and a half of home living, of no band practice, no shows. So I was, getting into the weeds as far as trying to figure things out. What are other amp options? Maybe I don't need to play a tube amp. Maybe I don't need to do all this stuff. And I was trying other options, and it didn't sound right. And all the gear was stolen, for better, for worse. And it's all right. Highwatt reached out and said, "Hey, sorry to hear your gear was stolen. If we can help, we can put you in touch with a rental house, and they'll get you some gear." I thought, I have no idea what the hell I'm playing right now. I'm not totally stoked. So sure. And once I plugged into the Highwatts, I was shedding pedals right and left. I had so many weird gain stages prior to that, but it was such a clear sound that less was more. I plugged into BEOD Deluxe. I was like, damn, like
it had to be crushing.
it was
a
great.
Highwatt.
You can put pedal before or after it, but like you don't need to.
Well, you got 2 channels on it anyway, so
yeah, with a tight control, which is so useful for like bringing it in. Like everybody, like our sound guy was there, our label owner and manager was at her studio, and the bandmates, everyone's like, this is like your future. Like you're playing Highwatts and this is what you're doing now. I was like, oh hell yeah. Like it happened to be Highwatt, but I think part of it was just going back to loud 412s, like how the band started. I used to play with 412, like a stack of 412s back in the day, and God, I missed it. So in this era of like getting smaller and getting digital, smaller footprint, less speakers, I get that. But man, I love a lot of amps, a lot of low end, a lot of volume, and just push it. Bring earplugs to the show. It's gonna be fucking loud. It's gonna be uncomfortable. It's gonna shake your sternum. You're gonna be.
That's how it should be.
That's rock music. We're not.
I would say it's a rock concert.
It's like it should scare the crap out of you. Like
right.
Move. It should. The speaker's pushing air. You should feel it. You should feel a literal reverberation in your body. That's part of it. It's not just a sonic adventure. It's part of the sound waves, the huge crushing bass waves rolling right through you. That's why we go to shows partly.
I sort of remember that about you guys live when I saw you. I kind of remember that it was the powerful sounding, like extremely, like it did hit you in the chest.
Awesome.
And that was before the Highwatt.
That's without a vocalist, you have more room to push everything forward. If you're a sound guy, you got to leave room for the vocals naturally. So hey, can you bring the guitars back? Let's take that bass down a little bit. Certain elements of the drums might not be as loud, but we don't. There's only 3 of us and no vocals, so we don't want to. There's good loud and bad loud, of course, but that's why we love our sound guy and like, hey, push it and make it loud. And if it's too loud, like too loud doesn't exist to us unless it sounds bad. And then like I'm not afraid to turn down if it's stepping on my bandmates or not a good mix. So you don't need to be a jackass about it. Like you don't just turn up and ignore everybody else. You play with the band and you make sure it sounds good up front, depending on the room you're playing. You're not always playing the biggest room. So put on a good show. But I like feeling a loud stage. Like not every show is the same. But when you have a great sounding stage, that's the best. You could play for 6 hours straight and there's one person left. Like, you're a trooper. Thank you. Like, those are fun nights when it's just a really like a good live room. Those are fun. Good reverberating rooms are fun.
Wood stage.
Nice. Oh yeah, wood stage.
Wood stage that just has that kind of thing.
Yep, exactly. Yep. Yeah, those dead rooms kill me. It's like to me, it's like a comedy club. You want a comedy club to be lively, so everyone laughs and the comic knows everyone's laughing, and like it just all works. But when a room is dead, the crowd seems dead. The decay of the guitar and cymbals just die. There's
no life. It just sounds like
it just seems like a
mushy mess.
Yeah, it's not as fun. It's not good for rock. I'll say that.
No, right, not at all.
Hey Kyle, how's it going? He said Russian Circles rules. I was in touch with Mike to get him some rev gear a couple of years ago. I work for the company. Great guy and band. Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle. Yeah, Kyle's hooked me up with some rev gear for sure. Sounds awesome. I use that rev G20 head a lot actually for a home recording. I think that's the head. Yeah. What up, Kyle?
Wait a second. I thought I missed somebody, but maybe not. Oh no. Okay.
No, there's a super chat.
Yeah, I see. Cars in Depth. Dave, any Jeff Beck stories you witnessed or heard? Yeah, I mentioned this to Mike yesterday that I'm sure we were gonna touch on Jeff Beck.
I worked on one of his amps once, but I never met him. So
what amp?
It was like a Plexi Marshall reissue that he had gone down, and I fixed it. I knew his guitar tech at the time. And then another friend of mine, oh God, what a tragic, Michael Lockwood is a client of mine for a million years. Michael Lockwood was married to Lisa Marie Presley. They had been going through a kind of a bitter battle of such for years, actually, after the divorce. But he was living in England with her for a while, and the next door neighbor was Jeff Beck. So they used to hang out and play guitar together and stuff, and just hang out and have a beer. Wow. And he was telling me some stories of that, and then to lose him and then his ex-wife the next day or the day after or whatever, kind of crazy, insane. I texted him, but I haven't heard from him, but I'm sure he's busy, knee deep.
Yeah.
And because he has 2 daughters with Lisa. So
really? Oh wow.
Yeah, he had twin daughters.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's right. What's his name again? I'm sorry.
Michael Lockwood. We were talking about having him on the show. Michael Lockwood, years ago, he had done all the guitars for like Fiona Apple and Amy Mann and a whole bunch of other people, like in the early 90s.
Interesting. Yeah, it's sad. I mean, and of course Jeff Beck, what an amazing player. I mean, I wish I could say he was an influence on my playing, but he's not. I mean, because I can't play.
He's an alien.
Yeah, I can't play anything like him. I mean, it's not like I've ever tried to emulate him or any of his songs, but his stuff is so unique and so good. And he changed his style
a million times over the years.
Yeah, so many times, and he can go from just really nice classic rock to funky jazz fusion,
music. I saw him I was listening to him play Mahler just last week, like before he passed, and I was like, damn, I'd never heard this version of this, whatever composition it was. It was beautiful. He knew he could clearly shred and be very expressive and articulate with his playing at a high speed, but he could also just take things down and be very expressive, just riding the volume knob and emulating string sections. And he didn't have a sense of ego when he played. He always had a way of fitting to the song, where when the 80s shred era
Whoops. Who is this?
What did you do?
Vibe going here.
What are we listening to?
What did you turn on? Is that you?
Oh wow, that was me. You're welcome for that. That's Jeff Beck's untouched catalog. I want to lay it on you guys. That's his vocal work, actually. And no one really knows that he has like a higher voice, but that's his natural singing range. That's why he doesn't sing that often, actually. I mean, I don't know why Spotify just cut loose for some reason. You're welcome for that. Sorry, Jeff. Incredibly rude right there.
Oh, that's all right.
I was like, all right, when do you guys want to get your shit dialed in? Oh, it's me. Okay.
Like I didn't touch anything.
But yeah,
I'm like thinking to myself, okay, wait, that's not my iTunes. No.
Yeah, I'm like, I was searching, like, what did I touch? Nothing.
Yeah, I'm going to a show tonight with a friend, and I've never heard the band before. I was just looking them up earlier, and that's the band.
Oh, okay.
That's the band.
I'm happy to give it a shot, but that's unfair to Jeff to derail the conversation, because it's a big deal, I think, to acknowledge his passing, because it gives opportunity for the other younger generation to get into Jeff Beck. This is their chance to get into him and see what he did and spread the videos, spread songs, and see what he was about, and maybe ignite a fire in them, because he was a one of a kind, and he advanced the guitar in a way most guitar players would dream to do,
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
100%. Yep. Sorry to lose him. I saw a picture today of Eddie, and and Jeff Beck together. I was like, oh wow, two legends gone.
More to come, unfortunately.
I know.
We're gonna see everyone from those eras pass away.
Yeah.
And you're gonna start. Yeah, I mean,
it's gonna be rough.
Yeah, everyone but Keith Richards.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think anything can kill him.
And maybe Ron Wood. I think both, whatever those guys took.
Definitely Keith Richards.
Yeah, the old joke. We need to think about what kind of world we're gonna leave for Keith Richards.
Yeah.
That's like since '87, I feel like that dude's still going. So
it's insane.
Knock on wood, he's still rolling.
Yeah. Jake, thanks for your question. Thank you for stopping by, Mike. I got into your music back when you got Brandon Curtis, Secret Machines involved, and I've enjoyed everything since then.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, thank you, Jake. Yeah, Brandon's an old friend of the band who produced a few of our records, and met him when we opened for Secret Machines. He was an awesome dude who had a wealth of knowledge about music, and he was one of the most inspiring and informative people to work with. Like every recording, he kind of pushed me. He's like, I think you can do something like that's cool, but I think you can maybe come up with something different. So a lot of it would prompt me to do an improvisational thing over the song, which would end up becoming a set in stone part of the music. But I always think of Brandon a lot whenever I'm writing, kind of like go further out there. You can always come back in, but kind of push yourself and see what you can come up with. But yeah, Brandon's very talented dude.
It's cool. Jonathan's shop. Do you use a string lube like Big Ben's nut sauce? I've used that stuff before. Quite honestly, I don't know if it does anything. I mean, I've used it like on a telly and like on the nut or something like that. But
I mean, it's just lubricant for the nut, so the strings doesn't stick. If the nut's cut really well, it should be okay. It has a purpose, I guess. Sure. If you use a tremolo, not so much.
Exactly.
Fixed bridge, or
Do you ever use a tremolo, Mike, or is it mostly fixed bridge?
Almost always fixed. I'm always messing with tunings like all over the place, and it's just too much of a headache. So even like my Strat, that's pretty much blocked out just so I can cruise through any tunings. And whenever I'm writing, it's like, all right, try this in different tuning, and keep changing it until it finds a home. So I wish I was more comfortable or had a guitar around that maybe had a tremolo or something like that, but it's a cool tool. I had an SG, actually one that I'm selling this week. It just sold the other day. That had like a Lyra, like Maestro Lyra. And that was really cool, like super fun. Like it's not the same effect as a Strat type whammy bar, but really cool vibe for like chords, and you get a really
shimmery.
Yeah, cool kind of like haunted effect with that. And I do appreciate that, but I'm always just meticulously changing tunings just for, I don't know, experiment essentially.
Do you create your own tunings, or are you using like traditional alternate tunings?
I started off like in this band with DADGAD. The first record was all DADGAD, and then from there started getting weirder and weirder. And a lot of the tapping patterns are easier, and cooler ideas can happen if you have alternate tunings. So I drop certain strings, and some strings in the new record go up or some go down, and a lot of drop A, like low A, like the low E is an A, and then conventional A string is an A, so you have a double octave A. You can get a lot of cool drones with that. A lot of it is usually doubling strings, having like several A's, several D's, and sometimes it's fun to have ugly, horribly dissonant chord in there or note. So like a lot of it would be like C sharp, G sharp, D for the low 3. You get that open, it just sounds awful. It sounds wrong. It just makes it's an uncomfortable chord, but with enough distortion, it's effective. It sounds ugly, a really ugly chord, and sometimes that's fun. Instead of a beautiful open G or whatever, it's just like a angry sound.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of nice for what we do. We like, we gravitate towards that side of things to sound uglier instead of pretty, and sometimes. So it's fun to really go for it when you're.
And that's what makes it interesting.
Yeah, it's tension.
That's what creates tension and a mood and that's seemingly what I feel when I hear your music. It has a mood, it has a weight to it. It's not just it says something.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think that's when you have a singer, you have to find a place for them, return to the verse, hit the chorus sometimes in conventional rock music, but you're not worried about some singer who's like, hey, what do I do on stage for the next 8 minutes? Like, you don't have that guy. You can just take the song and any narrative you want to tell, So go dark, you can go light, you can get further dark, you can take it in a weird path, but there is a lot of freedom not having a vocalist on stage. That's a nice point.
Do you use heavy gauge strings, or are you a lighter gauge string guy? Or
I mean, they're thicker strings, but I tune down a lot. So I use 11 to 56 on both guitars. Essentially, I have two guitars I use live for different tunings, but I also use the Digitech drop pedal, where you can switch which interval you want to go up. I use a regimen actually, which is a similar pedal, but that helps me out as far as going down to B or A or what have you. But I'm so comfortable with that tuning and that string gauge where that's home for me, where I can, with the 56, I can go down to the drop A and it still holds. It's not it's flubby. It's flubby as hell. Like, friends play my guitar and like, what is this soup of an E string here? It's like, you got to be careful with it. It's not
right.
If you picked up my guitars, you guys would think it's like, oh, were you flying? Did you detune this for flying? What's going on? It's like, no, I'm up at concert pitch right now. I'm ready to play. But that works for me. I've tried thicker, lower E strings and all kinds of stuff, but I do a lot of tremolo picking too, and that 11 to 56 kind of does it all for me. I don't bend much either, so I'm no Stevie Ray Vaughan up there. So it's just a lot of.
Well, it makes sense with the down tuning. 1156 is not crazy at all.
It's really not for how low as we go. It's not. That's why it's thick, but it's not heavy. Really, it doesn't feel, the tension's not much.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Roger Dat, thank you for the super chat. I don't have another rhyme for that, but I did actually. Look at that. I'm wow, I'm just going around and around. Mike, any concern protection regime for your hearing, regimen for your hearing? Highwatt's bark loud.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I always wear earplugs every show, whether I'm playing, attending, practice. Even here when I'm writing songs like digitally through an interface and working on stuff. I have them right here, so I'll show them. But erasers, I think they're called. They're all gross and weird looking now, but
yeah, I've seen those before.
Guitar Center sells them. Every guitar store sells them, but they do a good job of reducing decibels without blocking all the high end, yada yada. Custom earplugs are nice, but I lose those weekly, and it's too much pressure on me. And so these are relatively affordable, 40, 50 bucks. And I always wear earplugs. Whenever my friends come to shows or people who aren't acquainted with what we're doing, it's like, bring earplugs. It's going to be more fun if you bring earplugs. I didn't wear earplugs for the first 8 years of the band. And I definitely have damage over here. And my ears are ringing all the time. I'm sure we all have tinnitus, like everybody I know has tinnitus who plays music. So it's not crippling, thankfully, but it's a nice wake up call to be like, what am I doing? Like, of course I should wear protection. And it's irresponsible not to, I still hear, it's funny. I went to one of my first shows ever was my brother took me to an Anthrax concert, and it was Judas Priest's, Rob Halford's band Fight opened, and they were super loud, crazy loud. And then Anthrax. I got home and my parents waited up to make sure everything went well because it was my first show. but I couldn't stop laughing because I heard lisps when everybody spoke, like the S sounds. Sounds were just really funny to me because I couldn't hear properly because I had hearing damage. So I was like little kid, like 13 years old, laughing at everybody. My parents, they're scolding my brother. Like, you take your brother to a show once and you get him drunk, and I'm like giving him help. And my brother's like, I don't know what's up with this kid. Like, there was no alcohol involved. He just has been laughing the entire time I speak. I don't know what's going on. But I had some hearing damage from that show. And whenever, even just yesterday, from playing a lot, I hear, like when certain people speak, I detect a lisp very easily, depending on how they speak, But I do have long-term damage, and everybody should wear earplugs. Buy nice ones and always wear them. Like if you don't need to, you don't need to. But I enjoy myself when I have earplugs. It's more fun. I don't worry about it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I did the same thing. Unfortunately, for many years, I played drums.
Oh, sure. The high end, man.
Oh, cymbals.
Oh, cymbals are the worst.
The worst. Yeah.
China cymbals are even. Oh God.
That's kind of my right ear is all messed up because a drummer would be bashing into us.
Yeah.
We were doing small shows back in the day. We're right on top of each other, and like all I heard was guitar and crash cymbal. So
yeah,
it's no fault of his. He's got to hit the thing. So.
Yeah, it's brutal though, and when it happens, it takes
Right.
a long. And when you're laying in bed at night and you hear it.
Oh yeah.
I have tinnitus in one ear. Just one.
That's almost brutal. That's brutal.
Just one ear, and it's not really strong, but it's if I concentrate on it, I hear it all the time. Yeah. And I went and got my hearing checked though, and there was no discernible loss.
Oh, nice.
That's good.
So on either ear, they were about the same, and there was no discernible. It was all within spec, so to speak.
Wow, that's
so
good. You're lucky.
She's like, yeah, you're fine. I'm like, great. I don't have tinnitus in one ear then.
Yeah, answer that. They showed me a graph of both my ears of like how what I can hear, and there was no symmetry in those two graphs. The right ear like conked out pretty early on. It's like, oh man, my right ear. I prefer to be on certain sides of people when they're speaking. I'm not tone deaf. I'm fine, but it's definitely there's a wake up call to me to like, dude, I don't want to be the old guy who can't hear a goddamn thing, So
I went to the ear doctor as well. I got my hearing checked, and I have high end loss. And that I was finding that when I get into a crowd or a restaurant, and a lot of people are talking, I start to lose like what people are saying because everything's just blending in with each other, and I can't. So he said that's unfortunately what happens, when you start losing, So, he's like, we'll check you every year, but hopefully I won't ever have to need a hearing aid.
I'm banking on like German technology just to get the best like hearing aids ever in the future. It's like,
yeah, I hope
they've gotten pretty good now.
Man, I need them to just come out with like the best shit ever so I can like actually hear again. Like
they have gotten pretty good. I will say that.
I like what I see so far.
We've got Sirapazu. Thanks for the super chat. Mike, a friend who is a huge fan, says your live sound seems bigger. Something new in your rig, or is this front of house trickery?
I mean, I'd have to give compliments to our sound guy, but a big part of that, I think, is refining the sound on my end, finding better pedals, better speakers, better heads, and also playing in stereo. There's something about playing in stereo that really gives it another dimension to the sound. It's night and day for me. If you have the ability to play in stereo and set a little bit of delay or like chorus through stereo, sounds incredible. You don't need to be cheesy with it, but stereo effects are very effective for giving this illusion of dimension. But even with distorted, like even just riffs, just old school riffing, if there's a little bit of delay on there, it adds a certain dimension because the sound's hitting you at a different time. And that is my biggest change that I've noticed is stereo guitar sounds way better live. Like I swear by it. Like every show is stereo, and the PA is hard right, hard left with a little center guitar from a different amp. So it definitely live is a stereo rig live. So
that works well for one guitar player.
Exactly true.
When you have stereo rigs and 2 guitar players, it starts to get messy.
Yeah, sure.
And because then it's like, well, who do you pan where and how? And
right.
But for you, it makes total sense. You're creating this landscape of sound.
No singer,
and there's no singer, there's no nothing. It's you filling up the space with the bass. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, it is a luxury of having.
Yeah, that's a total luxury. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. Yeah, it is nice.
Let's see. Release from Within says one of my all-time favorite concert memories was seeing Russian Circles play Deficit, and how absolutely crushing it was. I thought the building was going to collapse. It was glorious.
Nice.
That's awesome.
That's a slow song of ours, a slow and heavy burner. So those are fun to play live. The slower, the better, as far as I'm concerned. I love simple, slow, and heavy songs, and that one's always one of my favorites to play.
Yeah.
Modern Vintage Dave, are 80s, 90s SLO 100s a better choice than zeros to the 10s due to originally spec caps and other parts that stopped being produced?
Probably not really. You'll be surprised if you took one from one area, one from another, put them on an amp switcher where you can literally instantly switch between them, and then just dial the knobs to get the same tone. It's maybe a couple of the knobs are a little bit in different position, but you'd be surprised. I don't really think so.
Reza, Mark has some crazy glasses. It's funny.
Those are new, aren't they?
They're new, but it's the lighting that are really making them pop like off my face. It's really, I was trying to do whatever I could to make it, because in regular lighting it doesn't look like this, but they look like a mirror on my face right now for whatever reason. It's the lighting. So
it's funny, the glasses actually make your whole jawline seem thinner. Well, because they're wider.
Possibly, or I've lost 20 pounds.
Oh, okay.
So that's come for a while. So, but yeah, no, it's funny the light, because if I turn this way, they don't shine that way.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as the light just shines on them, anyway. I thought someone was going to comment on them. Thanks, Reza. That's funny. The life of being on YouTube. Let's see. David Pudlow, Mike, I met you when I worked at GC.
I met you when I worked at GC.
I imagine when he worked at GC.
Yeah. You were never a douchebag. Like some rock stars.
That's the high watermark for me, is not being a douchebag. When I achieve that, it's kind of like try to keep it up.
You're a classy dude. Well, that's nice.
That's nice of him to say. It's funny. We talk about other guitar players, like Jeff Beck seemed to have a good reputation. And one of my Jeff Beck moments is when I heard Eric Johnson cover Beck's Bolero. Did it for, I think it was a Jeff Beck tribute album he did, but I'm a huge Eric Johnson fan. So his rendition of Beck's Bolero, you have two geniuses at work. You have Jeff Beck going through the filter of Eric Johnson. And Eric Johnson's an incredible guitar player. His phrasing, the notes he chooses, the way he plays all together. But I've always been impressed by Eric Johnson and how he conducts himself in interviews, and how down to earth and humble and gracious and mellow and mild-mannered he is. There's certain musicians I always appreciate for that reason. Or when you meet people, like, the cooler the musician, the nicer they are. I feel like there's no room for ego and that weird inflated sense of self. It's most of the guys I like are usually good folks, So it's nice to see folks like Eric Johnson, who's always, you're going to get a nice. From what I understand, I don't know the guy, but always seems like a
down to earth,
kind fella.
Yeah,
that's cool. Let's Let's see. I know we have other questions here. He only he only asked that question to hear Mark say nut sauce. Probably. I fell for that one. I fell for it. Damn it. Modern Vintage. After modding Pete's Germino, do you find that to be an ideal donor amp based on stock parts and transformers? Old Marshalls are priced similarly and rare. I guess that's to you, Dave.
Well, it was better than modding a reissue Marshall. It's going to have better transformers, going to have better parts. So yeah, that was the reason. It was a relatively good price compared to a vintage amp. So yeah, it doesn't have to be that amp. It could be some other Marshall, clone kind of thing with good transformers and stuff, Yeah.
Dr. Z in the house. What's up, Dr. Z?
Hey, man.
Hope you guys are good.
Dr. Z, nice.
Yeah, we should have him back on. Good guy. Yeah, cymbals are the worst. What's up, Ben? Big thank you to Ben for being one of our moderators and taking care of the chat and telling people to subscribe and hit the like button. Which please make sure you guys subscribe and hit the like button. That reminds me. Hey, Mike, do you have a go-to practice routine? From Mike Kane.
I do more so these days. I didn't for years. I wish I did. In the last few years, I've gotten more into classical guitar. And I've learned so much as far as left hand dexterity and strength. I didn't realize I had all these weaknesses. And then the benefit of doing a scale. Like we all learned scales growing up, but I didn't realize all the different fingerings and all the different variations on a simple major key scale. They call it the Segovia scale, a certain way to play it. But that's a very humbling affair when you first get started. But that's exposed me to all types of benefits from having a proper routine. So now, like before a show, I have a routine now where I just get everything loose and ready. And a lot of it makes a difference. Like if you play and if I play a set and I'm warmed up, things just go better. If I'm sliding from the first fret up to the 15th, I hit it. If I'm not warmed up, I might hit 14, and I hate that. You don't want any jazz notes when you're up there in front of a lot of people,
Sure.
So you think it wouldn't matter, but it really does. And so there's warming up, which is what I do before shows. That's just getting the muscles ready in your head, kind of locked into the fretboard and the guitar. But practice routines are a huge, huge benefit. Like every serious guitar player should do it. And also, it's a great way to track yourself to see if you're getting better. A classical guitar, it's like, oh, I've kind of learned that song a little bit now. Before, I didn't know if I was right or left-handed, and now I can actually play it. So there is, a great reason, and you can definitely benefit from it. So yeah, I have my own weird routines that I've gravitated towards.
So there's some guy here, Fishbulb. Yeah, Fishbulb. He asks, what loop are you using these days? Possibly the Headrush still? I already know the answer to this, but
yeah, I stopped using the Headrush only because it's not proper stereo. So I'm using an image looper, a T-Rex image looper, just because that has a simple setup. It's not overly fancy. So it's just a 2-button delay with one knob. No extra funny business to get me messed up live. And since that's a proper stereo pedal, that's what I use now. And the Headrushes would fail occasionally. Like 1 out of every 400 loops, it just wouldn't catch, and it'd mess up the song, and you'd have to cover for it live. So there's so many cool loopers out there, but less is more for me. When I'm doing live looping, I want less to go wrong.
You were using the Digitech one for a while, right?
I'm still using that too. I use 2 loopers live, I suppose. The Digitech is also, that's the stereo Digitech Jam Man. And I use that more so for pre-recorded loops for like noise.
Mm-hmm. You want me to show the pedal board?
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
Okay.
But the Jam Man, you can save presets on that one. So that the bottom left, that's the Jam Man.
Mm-hmm.
The top left of the pedal board is like there's a summing box there where that's where the stereo signals get combined into a mono signal, and I keep the right and the left signal. But the last pedal before that is the Jam Man. And so that's got pre-recorded loops that are usually noise interludes and more ambient arrhythmic loops. But all the live looping happens on the pedal to the right of that, which is the image looper, which they don't make anymore. And it's a very affordable pedal if you can find it. But it didn't make much of a splash, but that's my favorite pedal by far. I've tried, a handful of looper pedals. That one's
better buy some extras.
I literally started kind of like
collecting.
Yeah, I have. It's like, damn, I'll be in hot water if I lose one of these, So
yeah.
I actually bought a recent one recently, I should say. But yeah, I told Dave, but while the board's up here, that the BEOD Deluxe is great, man. That is.
I can only imagine what that sounds like into the Highwatts. It's gonna be crushing.
So rewarding. Like of those big shows we did opening for System of a Down, 2 of them were outdoor, I guess not arena, but stadium shows where they're big, soccer stadiums.
Yeah.
And the shows were fun. They were, we're lucky to be there, yada, yada. But the sound check of just doing ignorant, caveman chugs through the front of house PA when it was turned on, that was so much fun. Because by that point, I had the BEOD and the Highwatts. I was like, oh my God, I can just play this one note for 10 minutes and be the happiest dude
forever.
There's 8 billion people, and I'm top 1% of happiest right now, doing that live. It's so fun.
That's cool.
Great pedal, man. I love it.
Question for you: what are the 2 pedals in the middle here?
The ones that are horizontal.
Yes.
Okay.
I see they're like in front are 2 switchers.
Okay, those 2 and those little guys are Strymon favorite switches, which I use in various ways. That Flint pedal, which is a reverb pedal, I always have that engaged all the time, just because when you have, I think it's the tube setting, or the 61 harmonic, there's a harmonic setting, and that has a coloration to your sound where it draws out more high end, more low end. And for some reason, it's all digital, but for some reason, I prefer it with it on. But sometimes I need to turn it off to use a timed tremolo. So that's a favorite switch for that. The other Strymon favorite switch is for the dig. I use that a lot on and off for different delay settings. And then the other one next to it is a simple boost, I think, an XR boost. And then there's a Leopard pedal by the company Wizard, which is a cool, always-on overdrive I use. Kind of gives a little more, not much gain, but a little grit, a little more grind to everything. I kind of dig the way that sounds when it's on.
Is that a Keeley pedal also, I see?
That is a Keeley effects loop. So some of those pedals are an effects loop. Like the pedal that's all taped over to the left, there's a black pedal to the left of that one.
Yeah.
And there's a Boss HM2 pedal, which is a really great pedal in the heavy metal world. And that one knob is the HM2's EQ maxed out. And when I turn that knob, it just lets in that amount of the global EQ of it maxed out. Like how much of the maxed EQ do I want? So there's no gain in it. I'm using the gain from Friedman, but that just alters the EQ from as if there's HM2, which it doesn't sound like an HM2 because the fuzz circuit in the HM2 gives it its sound, but it does have this mid-range punch. So that
like a filter, basically.
In
a certain way.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think another pedal in that loop, which is no longer there, the pedal this has got to be the most minutia conversation right now. To the left,
people love this.
This is what we do.
We're into it now. To the left of that blacked out pedal, that now is a MXR Apex 808, and that's kind of a revolving door of a boost pedal, like
the Maxon.
The Maxon
Apex 808. That's a great pedal.
That pedal, That's a Chinese Silvertech, I think, is a company that I was using for a minute. That one in the photo, but the 808 Apex is a cool pedal that there's something to that one I'm liking a lot. So that's the latest and greatest that I've found useful for what I'm doing.
Hmm. And when you use the BEOD Deluxe, are you using both channels to boost?
For sure. Yeah, I run them both pretty hot just because most of our set these days is just like over the top metal. So it's just like heavy and heavier the way they're set. Um, and I just realized last month that it can run it at 18 volts, which is driving me crazy.
Do you like that better, or have you not tried it?
I have a BEOD, an old one
Yeah.
that I've been jamming with, and it's so hard to tell like through a DAW. You don't really know until you tune. Like you need to plug into an amp and turn it up loud, and then you know what things sound like. You know.
To be honest, I sort of like it at 9 volts.
I haven't decided yet. I would like to hear it so I can see
Yeah.
how it plays with the other ones, but I wish I just knew about that. That's good to hear that like you prefer it at 9. Does it give it
Well,
more?
I mean, I don't know why. Just something harmonically about it. I like it at 9, but I mean, it sounds cool at 18, and it might work for you. I don't know. So
Yeah.
you know, what you do is a total different ball game from a standard guitar player. You know, with detuned and you know, with the high headroom amps and everything, it's gonna be different. So I listen to it at 12 also.
Oh, 12, nice. Okay.
Yeah, anywhere from 9 to 18.
Okay, I didn't know
So
that.
you can anywhere in between.
It's so fun, man. I gotta say, like, as far as us talking about gear acquisitions and all that, there's nothing more fun than just trying new pedals out. Like, yeah, I'm happy, but what's this one? I'm gonna try it out. When we do our records, every song there's no pedalboard in the studio. We just have a box full of
Yeah.
pedals, and we start from scratch every song. There's no like,
Yeah.
all right, let's go to the usual. It's literally like
Patch it together and go, that's cool.
yeah, exactly. And we know which pedals we like and use more
Uh-huh.
often than others, but like that's not the recipe. That's just an ingredient, you know. But I like just fucking around because you don't know what you're gonna come up, and you might change. You might like something one day and write something that you love that you wouldn't have written on a different pedal configuration, you know. So it's worth having different colors and flavors to mess with, you know.
For sure.
Voltages, I should say too.
Oh, before I jump into that, is that a wah also that you have?
Yeah, that's like a Clyde McCoy Dunlop wah.
Okay.
Then
Yeah,
a volume pedal.
Speaking of filters, like the wah pedal as like a filter is a slow burn kind of effect.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a great way to use wah. I feel like that. Not to plug wahs, not that the wah needs any help from me, but like that pedal I use only for that kind of that effect is for the slow like phaser effect almost, you know. But yeah, that's why how I use that.
Something I saw recently that was kind of piqued my interest. I saw the rig rundown for guy from Greta Van Fleet.
Okay.
Where he incorporated, I think he incorporated some fractal unit, but to do stereo wah. Because his whole rig is stereo now too. And he was doing essentially a stereo wah where it was filtering, you know, it was going the opposite way on each side.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
And when you heard it, and he said the PA stereo too. So when you filter and do that, it's like this crazy sound. So now I just gave you that idea.
No, that's what a cool idea of using modern technology to push.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's not using it for too much stuff. He's got a lot of analog pedals, but he made this stereo rig, and you know, he can expression pedal with that unit, and he can make it do that. You know,
sure, that makes it such a better experience. He seems like a gearhead, and that's a great example of him.
Yeah,
Manipulating.
he likes old amps and old gear and classic things, and you know, it's funny. You know, as they're from Michigan too, and I've seen them a couple times, and the last time I went, I saw them at the Palladium a few years ago, right before the pandemic, and well, like, yeah, let's go down here because they were using something else of mine, and we went down to the show, a friend of mine, and that, and I'm like, I'd seen them once before, but they were much younger. They're like a year or two prior to that. And when I saw this show, I'm like, man, I gotta say they put on a great show.
Nice.
I mean, like, you were thoroughly into the show, you know, you're having a cocktail, you're thoroughly into the show, and you're just like, wow, that's fucking great. Yeah. It's like a good rock band, you know? And you know, now they're playing the pond. Now they're playing an arena.
Yeah,
you know, it's crazy.
They were so young when they broke. It's
Yeah.
like give them time. They're like, if my band broke when I was that age, I'd be like a bummed out human. They're gonna grow. They're huge music fans, and by the grace of that, they're gonna be on the right path and do cool shit.
Yeah. Everyone gives them shit or this or that, but you know, I could see points of that, but man, when I go to see them live, they were great. And that's what really counted. Like, I had a good time at the show, and it was like, you know, seeing a great rock show that, you know, that doesn't happen a lot anymore.
It's true. Yeah. There's so many, not so many, but it's common at these bigger levels of shows to see no amps on stage, no cabs on stage.
Yeah.
There's bands we toured with, and the only thing, you go watch side stage. Oh, you know, I'm gonna go watch these guys for a minute. And like, well, the drummer seems to be on time. Okay, I'm fucking bored. Like I want to hear feedback. Nothing beats feedback. The whole point of playing guitar live is to hear feedback and mess with it. You know,
I'll go down this path with you all day long. Yeah, for sure. You know, friends of mine that I always see every time they come through town is this band from the 90s, Sponge, out of Detroit, you know, and they play clubs now. But when you go see their show, it's a rock show, and there's feedback, and there's real amps. And it's exciting because of that, you know. The songs start with feedback, and you know, it builds that tension and that thing. You can't. Sorry, you're not going to get feedback out of a modeler.
Right.
Well, not unless they pump up that monitor in front of you really loud, just so you can get that little feedback on that one part.
Right. And they're faking it. Yeah. I feel you.
I don't.
Sarah Pazu Dave, any news?
Not done yet.
Freeman Eyes AC30. Not done.
Sometimes, I'll tell you what, here's the answer. Sometime this year. I have circuit boards and a chassis and transformers sitting next to me, but I haven't put them together yet.
Okay. Home Dam, late to the show. Hey, Mike, can you talk about electrical audio?
Yeah. Electrical Audio is a studio in Chicago owned by Steve Albini that he built with his friend Greg from the ground up, brick by brick, with Adobe brick. They know exactly what they wanted acoustically, and very controlled atmosphere and sound properties there. And that is such a luxury for us to record there. I'm lucky that we can record there and that anybody can record there. Us three can start a band right now and book time there. And Steve recorded, he has a huge discography doing great records of his own, and then production, and also did Nirvana records, which gave him some, deep pockets in order to build the studio. But it's open doors to anybody. It's not just major labels. It's a professional studio, but some of the best records ever recorded have happened there. And we seem to do most of our records there. And
that's awesome.
The drum tone there is the best drum tone we can possibly find. That's why we always go there. Drums are guitar. It's more forgiving. You can record that at various places and make it sound pretty good. But drums, you need a good live room. You need to have everything in its place and proper reflective properties of the room and capture the low end and everything. And electrical it has that, but also has the vibe of the engineers. Greg, who we work with, is arguably one of the funniest people I've ever met. And any occurrence where we meet Steve, it's brief but hilarious. Like I'm a huge fan of Steve's band Shellac. Like I'm not so a fan of his band. That was like a sea change of my life getting into Shellac. So I have a huge respect for Steve. So electrical audio is like it's a lot of reverence for us when we go in there. We go in there like, wow, here we are. It's never like going to the office. It's like we're a bit humbled to go in there, and we're aware of what records have been recorded there. And if anybody needs a good place to record, Chicago, Illinois has electrical audio. There's 2 studios. One's more affordable than the other, but both have different sonic like signatures to them. One room is like the drum room is 3 stories tall. The other one has a recessed floor where there's reverberation beneath the floor. But a lot of great indie records have been done there, and metal record. They do everything, but it's the most professional studio we've been in, and that's a great spot. Like lucky to record there.
Very cool. Home has another question. I think that's how you pronounce it, Hom. Hey, Mike, have you ever played around with the Swiss things from Earthquaker devices?
Yes. I bought that and returned it just because it didn't work for my needs. Really cool pedal though, but it just, that's not what I was looking for at the time, but that's a cool pedal. But that's a very mechanical pedal, technical, not so much a tone thing. It shifts effects loops and that type of thing, reroutes things, and you can choose different effects loops. So it's not much of a effect pedal, so it's more like a rerouting pedal. But yeah, it's a cool pedal, but I've never really found a reason to use it.
Gotcha. I'm actually using a Mac, sorry, Smy-Tree. So, but that's good to know on a PC to do that. Fixed pedal boards with the big super chat. Dude.
Jesus, Tim.
Kick-ass show. Feeling guilty about Dave buying his own hooch. Yeah, if Mike wants any of our pedal board,
then if you wanted to send me money to buy my own hooch, then you should have just sent it to me directly.
Yeah, exactly. PayPal. If Mike wants any of our pedal board accessories, it's my treat.
Oh, cool.
In my completely unbiased opinion, Metropolis are the best vintage Marshall replica. Something about those Detroit ears makes for great amps. Yeah, George makes great amps.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, and now that you're here in LA, you know, I've been doing guitar rigs for 10 million years.
Yep. He's talking to you, Mike.
Oh, me. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Now that I know you're here, I've been doing guitar rigs for guitar players for 10 million years.
Yeah, it's funny. I came across, it's funny you mentioned that. Like, well, we should chat. Like, I came across a build of yours on Reverb today, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize you did that whole world. I'm familiar with what you've done in the past, you know, but I didn't know that was still an active thing you were doing. Like,
oh yeah, you know, we still do.
Oh, wow, build.
Yeah, currently, I'm going to do Chris Shiflett's rig coming up for the Foo Fighters, nice. Awesome. And I mean, I've done everyone over time, you know, over the years, but I mean, that's been my primary business for a million years. Amps kind of came into fruition around 2009. But, you know, I've been doing rigs since 1990. So,
yeah, it's anything. We should definitely sit down and hang out, because I think I could learn a lot from you. You could show me.
Yeah, there might be some cleaner, better ways to do what you're trying to accomplish, and, you know,
for sure.
make your life easier, and you know, and make it cleaner and make it less problematic.
What I'm doing, if you sat and watched me, if you were side stage and watched me play, you're like, oh my God, he's making this so difficult on himself. Like, why is he doing this to himself?
Yeah.
Like, no one, I don't have a rule book for this. A lot of us don't, you know. So,
yeah, sure.
So it's just like you don't know what you're doing up there, really. So you find this works. I route this. I put this in a loop. I do this. Put this over here. I want as many things in stereo as possible, and
sure.
Yada yada yada. But I'm sure there's a more streamlined, more efficient way to route things, for sure. You know, so
with still keeping, you know, your aesthetic, because you've been doing it for years too. You know,
right. Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to make sure the artist is comfortable with what he's going into, and that works for him,
Mm. Yeah,
But let's get together, man.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
You're down the street.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Who knew?
Basically.
Yeah, awesome.
Do you use any buffers on your board? Graphite and Cigars wants to know.
You know what? So many of the pedals I have built-in buffers, so I don't have a standalone buffer. But I believe the Strymon pedals, I've had those situated so the buffer is on because I think that benefit my signal chain. So I've even plugged in a buffer, a standalone buffer into the pedal chain. It didn't make a huge difference. So I think the buffers are pulling their weight, the ones I have in the chain. So, long story short, there's some buffer action happening.
Excellent. Well, you guys should definitely get together since you're close by. Wish I could join you for a drink, but
dinners, drinks,
you name it. Yeah,
hanging out, rig, all of the above. Different times.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, let's spread the love.
Excellent. Well, I mean, I think we've gone through all the questions. So I want to thank you, Mike, for coming on. And pleasure to meet you and learn about your band.
We're done.
Well, are we?
Really?
I don't know. 90 minutes. I mean, Mike and I talked about it, so I wanted to be respectful of his time.
Oh, good. So. I have to meet a friend for a show soon, so I'd be a bad friend if I hung around too much more. So I should say goodbye before too long.
But I wanted to share so you guys can check out Russian Circle's website. They've got a lot of albums for you to
check them out, guys, because they're awesome.
Yeah, we're a little guy. Thanks for having us on the show. And you have so many cool, huge artists. I know we're kind of left of center for what you guys do.
I don't know about that.
Well, it's cool to be on the show. So thanks for having me.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. I mean, we like to have all types of musicians on the show.
But it's cool because the show started as kind of more of a kind of gear centric show, kind of, and it's fun when someone is utilizing looping and all the pedals and all the textures and the tunings, and that's a rig, that's a thing, and that's something to talk about.
That's what's cool about the metal community, whether it be doom or death metal or whatever flavor of independent metal. They're all gearheads. They want the real shit. They want to have. It's not just a look. It's you have to sound great, and it's people care. Like it's not just plug into a 5150 with a two screamer. It's not that.
No,
fans really care about the cumulative effect of the tone wood, the pickups, the string gauge, each pedal, the amps, the speakers. These guys are chord sniffing metalheads, but when done properly, it makes a difference.
Sure, absolutely.
If you've not seen Sun live, seeing Sun live is such an amazing experience. You should have them on the show actually. But those guys, it's outstanding what they're doing with amplifiers. It's such volume. But anyway, heavy metal there's a whole culture of people who's obsessed with gear, and it's cool.
Always has been in a lot of respects, even from when I was a kid.
Sure. Yeah, it's still very much alive in different genres of metal. But yeah, it's cool. It's cool to see it living on in different versions.
Yeah. Well, great.
Oh, we got one last super chat jumped in right before we.
He just said tremendous show.
Thanks, Taylor.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. It was great to be back, and hope everybody has a great weekend. Our next guest is Howard Kaplan, who worked at EVH Gear. Nice. And Howard was
Fender and EVH Gear.
Yeah, Fender and EVH Gear. They're one of their designers or head designers. So he recently retired. James Brown took his place over at Fender, but Howard recently retired. So we're going to talk to to Howard. I know he's doing some things on the side. It'd be great to hear about his career. So, and with that, hang on while we say goodbye, Mike, offline real quick.
Sure.
But again, thanks so much for joining.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a great weekend. And we'll be back next Friday. All right. Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend.